and technology, it's time to talk about something just as powerful: identity. Because Brand India today isn't only built in boardrooms or labs, it's being shaped on red carpets, runways, and the global stage.
Well, it's the story of how culture becomes commerce, how heritage meets innovation, and how India's creative voices are defining luxury, wellness, and the purpose for the world.
And to lead this much-awaited conversation, we have Shireen Bhan with us. And joining her are two icons who've already taken India's artistry and authenticity to the world. Please welcome Deepika Padukone, an internationally acclaimed actor, producer, entrepreneur, and mental health advocate whose influence spans cinema, business, and global culture. From Pathaan to the Oscars stage, she continues to define what it means to be a true global icon. And Sabyasachi Mukherjee, founder and creative director of Sabyasachi, whose design language has become synonymous with Indian luxury across the globe. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome them all with a thunderous round of applause.
Yeah, don't hold back. I know this is the moment that all of you have been waiting for. That's the one question that we've been asked all day today. When is Deepika coming? When is Sabyasachi coming? So here they are, ladies and gentlemen. A big round of applause for Deepika Padukone and Sabyasachi Mukherjee. Thank you very much for joining us for the closing session of the second Global Leadership Summit. Without further ado, I don't know how many of the people in this room know, she's been your muse in many ways, Sabya, and I know we spoke about that previously as well. When we last spoke, you said that there's only one person from the world of Bollywood that's ever graced your runway, and that was Deepika Padukone. What is it about Deepika that's so magical?
Well, I think Deepika truly is India's biggest cultural mascot. Everybody from all over the world know who she is. She's bringing the world to India. And if you look like that, it really helps too, because, Deepika started with fashion. And I've always said that, if I wanted to put somebody on the runway, it has to be somebody who has a fashion background as well. But more than that, I think there is no stronger cultural ambassador of the country like Deepika. And it was an honor to have her walk the show. Thank you, Deepika.
Well, from one ambassador of Indian art and culture to another, Deepika, do you remember the first time that you met Sabya?
Yes, I remember the first time I walked for Sabya, and this was one of the many fashion weeks that were happening. I think it was in Delhi. At that time, we didn't have so many, then there was one in Bombay, one in Delhi, whatever. Anyway, this was in Delhi, and this was a very different Sabyasachi, and
How different?
Evolved. He's evolved today, right?
He's evolved now,
He's evolved now, and he's evolved. I wouldn't say he's different. Even today, if I think back on that work and that show, I still see Sabyasachi in it. But I'll never forget, it was basically this slick, pulled back, like choti, like a bun, like a braid going at the back. And all of us models had to take a black sketch pen or like a marker and draw a mark in our teeth to make it look like we were buck teeth. And big, like reading glasses. If you Google it, you'll find it.
Yeah.
That was the very first time I walked for him. And even back then, I just remember that this designer was very, very special. That was my first interaction. I then bought a sari from that collection, which I still own, by the way.
You did?
Yes.
I think that tells us things about both of you. And Sabya, I'll start with you. This idea of wanting to stand out and not fit in, this idea of wanting to disrupt, and I think that's something that the two of you have in common as well. Both of you like to challenge the status quo. And Sabya, I want to start by talking to you about that. I mean, who would have thought that a designer would actually get models to ink their teeth with a sketch pen before they go out there? I mean, what were you thinking?
Do you remember that?
I do. It was called the Nair Sisters. And, when I was growing up, I was an awkward child. And, as when you're awkward and when you're unseen and you're unheard, there's a majority of us who feel like that. And I always think that beautiful things and most important things in the world are built with relatability. And I think the underdog is always relatable. And that's not something that's ever glorified in fashion, because it was my life, my story, and I wanted to bring that out. And like I said, that I think you build beautiful things by including people and not excluding them. I know I have many conversations on that when people say I can't afford your clothes, but I've always built the brand on public ethos. So that was probably the beginning.
That was, and that's interesting that you talk about it. And Deepika, I want to ask you this in your own context of what you've been able to achieve as an actor, now as an entrepreneur, and more importantly now as an activist in the field of mental health. And of course, you're now the brand ambassador for the government's program on mental health. And we were together shooting in Chhindwara just a few weeks ago. And, there's a lot of good work for the last 10 years that Deepika and her foundation have done in that space. This idea of inclusion, this idea of relatability, I mean, those are not ideas that one associates necessarily with the world of celebrity, with the world of Bollywood, where everything is larger than life. How do you make yourself relatable to an audience like this? How do you make yourself relatable off-screen and on-screen?
How do you make yourself relatable? I mean, I don't know how to make myself not relatable. By just being. And I think even the craft expects that of me. I think when the camera's rolling, I'm not performing. I think there's a moment between action and cut where you find the truth. And I think when you find that truth and you hit that note, it's the most beautiful feeling. And I think I try and achieve that truth in everything that I do. Any kind of inauthenticity really bothers me. I cannot sleep. It's something that'll keep playing on my mind. So I think that deep need, like we'd spoken earlier, that deep need to be truthful and honest and authentic, I think is where relatability comes in. And I feel like with every character that you play, there is a little bit of you. There is a little bit of me, at least, in every character that I've played. So you take what is written by the writer, the vision of the director, but that's how an actor comes in and makes it special. There's no role that no actor can do. Everyone can do everything. If I'm not in a movie today, somebody else does it, it will be as special. But also, what I can do, that other person will not be able to do, because I'm bringing myself into that. And I think that's what makes it relatable and authentic.
Which character so far in the movies that you've played is the closest to Deepika?
Closest? There are a few. I think Piku. Not necessarily the journey of Piku yet, but I think just in terms of performance, a little bit of Ye Jawani Hai Deewani. So I think it's difficult to pick one. I mean, if I had to really pick one, I think it would be Piku.
It would be Piku.
Yeah.
But the other thing that ties the two of you together, Sabya, is the fact that you've both been very patient about building your brand, about building your craft. I want to start by talking to you about that. Because it's taken, 25 years for you to very studiously put together what you've been able to create. I mean, that was a strategic choice, right?
It was, but that was the only choice. Because I think when you want to build something beautiful, or you want to build something that lasts beyond your lifetime, I mean, whether it's somebody in performing arts, somebody in fashion, somebody in architecture, you really have to build it with the right vision. I remember I was in Barcelona and I was watching, I'd gone to see Gaudi's Sagrada Familia, and Gaudi's long gone, it's still being built. And I saw the monumental scale of the church, and I sat down and I started crying. And somebody just passed by, and he looked at me and said, "It happens to everyone." And then I realized that, when you build something with a lot of love, even if you're not there anymore, there'll be forces from around the world who'll support your vision and take it to completion. And it's very, very important for all of us to realize that there is only one way to build something. It could be, sometimes the road is very long, very narrow, and very lonely. I mean, you can ask Deepika, she's been on the top of her industry for a very long time, and I'm sure it's a very painful and a very lonely existence, because when you're at the top, nobody really understands you because you're the only one up there. But having said that, I would rather take that lonely road than do something that's fast and quick, because then you're building nothing.
Has it been a lonely road to the top, Deepika?
Of course, and it requires incredible amount of patience, because it takes that long to, I think when you're authentic and being truthful to who you are, sometimes I think that journey takes longer. And I think there are always ways to get to wherever you want to, or create whatever you want to, or build whatever you want to. It's always, there are ways, I think, to do it faster. But I think it requires patience if you want to do it in the most authentic manner. Yeah.
There's lots of similarities here. Both of you believe very strongly and very firmly in bringing the world to India and taking India to the world. I mean, you're the brand ambassador for a whole host of global brands. You're now the voice of Meta AI, and we'll talk about AI in just a second. But this idea of taking India to the world, how much of that is a passion and a deliberate choice for you?
It's very, very, I would say it's very deliberate in the sense that, and I think that's again where patience comes in, because I think I was very clear about taking India to the world, but the India that I know. For example, I think moving to Hollywood and trying to get into that industry like that, or do it in a way that has been expected of us, or do it in a way that suits a global audience, was something I was very clear I didn't want to do, even if it meant it took longer. Sorry, the question was?
Yeah, so, this idea of taking India to the world and bringing the world to India through your craft.
Yeah, so I think what bothered me was every time I went to the West, this sort of idea of India that is, so different from the India that I know. And all of those cliches, I've experienced it firsthand. Whether it's when it comes to casting, whether it's our accent, whether it's the color of my skin, I've experienced all of it firsthand. And I was very, very clear that I wanted to do it my way and on my terms. And so did it take longer? Yes, it did. So, I was doing an interview recently where they brought up the Louis Vuitton campaign that I did, and those hoardings were all across Sunset Boulevard, I remember. And I happened to be in LA at that time. And it felt weird, but I felt incredibly proud at the same time to see a brown face on a hoarding for a global luxury brand, because I had never seen that before. And that moment for me didn't feel like a personal victory. It felt like a victory for every Indian woman that needs to be seen in the way that she should be seen. So, yes, has that journey taken longer? Yes, it has.
Sabya?
We were ruled so many times. People from the West came and took everything away from us. But the thing that they actually took, and they created this damage, was our confidence and our pride in who we were. And then when you step back for a second and you start thinking about yourself as an Indian, it does fill you with a sense of arrogance. You know, I go all over the world. In every global summit that I go, I tell only one thing. I said, India is not a third world country. India is a first world civilization. Our civilization is older than many of yours. You've taken things away from us. You've called them yours. You've appropriated it. But I always think that, you know, like history repeats itself, time will always bring glory back and take you back home. And I think that's happening. You know, the power of resilience and the power of confidence shakes the most powerful people and the most powerful economies and the most powerful of politics all over the world. And when you learn to stand your ground and when you learn to speak with assertion, the way the world looks at you changes. And that's probably what's happened to Deepika as well, because, you know, she stood in India, she became very, very powerful in this country. And like I said, that, you know, I tell everybody, nobody puts India in a corner anymore because we are one of the most powerful nations in the world. And the world will take notice of you at your own terms.
Well, yes, no, you know, we're certainly not in a corner. We are clearly the bright spot at this point in time in a world which is mired with uncertainty and volatility. But AI and the voice of Meta AI, how did that happen, Deepika? And what's that been like for you?
How did that happen? I mean, it happened, but interesting also, no, that I'm someone whose voice was like sort of mocked when I came into the industry, and now suddenly I'm the voice of Meta AI. Strange.
Well done.
But and my accent, but I continue to own it, and I think that's probably how and why it happened. But I mean, what do I think about it?
Yeah.
AI or how?
I mean, you know, there's all kinds of disruptions on account of it, including what is likely to happen to the film and entertainment world. People are now talking about dishing out AI movies in a matter of days, forget weeks or months. You know, so as somebody from the industry, do you see that as an exciting opportunity? Do you see that as a threat?
No, I'm so excited about the possibilities. The only thing I'm not sure about, I'm not saying. Actually, I'm going to say that with a lot of confidence because I truly believe it. The only thing I believe it cannot replace is human emotion. I think that's the only place AI will not be allowed or will not be able to match up. Can it do a similar job? Yes, maybe. Maybe it's not there yet. I don't know. So barring human emotion and how an actor would emote, because you can't infuse soul into AI. You can't
Not
infuse,
yet.
yeah.
Not yet anyway. Not yet anyway.
But I believe that. In that department, I'm a little bit of an old soul, right? So I'm someone who's all for like embracing everything that is new and forward and all of that. But just when it comes to the human soul and emotion, I have a feeling that is irreplaceable. But outside of that, I'm very excited for what the possibilities are.
You know, Sabya, are you equally excited, or do you also look at it with some trepidation and nervousness? Because, you know, you can churn out designs quite literally in a matter of seconds. There's existential questions being asked of the film world, of the entertainment world, of us in the media world, you know, of ad agencies and so on and so forth. So how do you look at what's happening in AI and what it means for human creativity?
See, two things. Firstly, the human mind will constantly evolve. Secondly, AI is necessary for many things to drive efficiency in fields where efficiency is required. But in art and craft and in the business of emotions, like we say, whether it's fashion, architecture, food, films, I think AI will never be able to replace human beings because, you see, what's happening to the world right now, if we look at, you know, I was born in 1974, so I've seen it all. So I've seen the invasion of the internet. So it was the age of information. Then it became the age of influence. The age of influence has now become the age of intelligence. But we are finally going to the final frontier, which is going to be called the age of wisdom. Because human beings will understand the importance of being human again. You know, I did a show for which Deepika walked, and a lot of people didn't understand. I had put slogans on T-shirts which said "Table for one," you know, all dressed up, nowhere to go. Where has love gone? Anybody home? This is what the internet has done to us. For all the smartness of human evolution. We have learned to do everything, but we have forgotten to be human. We can't build relationships anymore. Our relationships are built on the internet. We pass on the internet, we fail in the real world because we are living in isolation. And I think AI will quickly tell you how terrifying that is. And, I say that evolution takes care of everything because the human mind and the human body will learn to cope and will learn to fight and will learn to survive. And we can only survive if we are human beings. So AI, the threat of AI, at least in the creative industry, is very short term because people will realize the importance of being human and will start rejoicing human emotions again.
Well, we hope that that certainly happens to be the case. But I want to ask you, because you talked about evolution, Deepika, at the start, and you said Sabyasachi has evolved and is a very different person today from the time that you first met him. How have you evolved? How do you now look at success? How do you look at ambition? Have those words taken on a new meaning as you sit here today after the journey that you've covered so far?
Yeah, of course, and I think it should for everybody. But I think as a young girl, when you're growing up, success is, what is success? Success is the fancy car that somebody's driving, or the home that someone lives in, or the lifestyle that they have. I think that as a young girl, what is your friend bringing to school in her
Tiffin box.
tiffin box versus what are you bringing and things like that. So if someone, brought some chocolates from abroad, it was like, oh wow, she's really wealthy. But as you get older, you start realizing that success and wealth are, for me today, success truly is if I can wake up in the morning alive, without feeling a bout of like anxiety or depression, for me personally, because I've been through that journey. So I think my mind and body working at 100%, that for me is success. And I think the second most important thing for me is time. I think it's our most valuable resource, but also scarce in that sense, limited. So today for me, success is how do I manage my time? How do I spend my time? And who I spend my time with. Today for me, that is success.
You talked about just wanting to wake up, knowing that you can operate at 100%. And I know it hasn't been easy for you to come out there publicly to talk about what you've had to go through as far as dealing with anxiety and depression is concerned. But today, as you become the brand ambassador for a government program, it validates the effort that you've put in over the last 10 years, does it not, Deepika? I mean, how do you feel at the end of this?
I mean, it kind of is a full circle almost, from people questioning my intent. And I remember we had spoken about this very briefly, from people questioning my intent to thinking I was being paid by pharmaceutical companies to promote an illness, to people thinking that this was a publicity stunt for a movie of mine that was releasing, my foundation and its work being questioned because of the way we appeared, and we didn't look poor enough to be an NGO. So we've been through all of that. And I remember thinking to myself and saying to the team, all we have to do is, we know we're honest in what we're doing. All we have to do is put our head down and continue to do the work. And I think that's what we've done over the last decade. And that's why we were here. That's why we were there in Chhindwara. You were there to see it firsthand. And I think that our commitment and honesty and consistency is what has led today the government to recognize that as well. And I'm happy that I have the ability today to spread even more awareness and help the government's cause, I remember walking into one of the homes in Chhindwara and they were surprised. They didn't know that my foundation...
Yes, I know for a fact that they didn't know that you were behind the foundation.
They didn't know that we were behind that work. And then when I made it even more personal and told them that I'm still on medication today, and, and the gentleman sitting next to me was my psychiatrist, it just, their eyes lit up to know that even someone like me is experiencing something exactly that they're experiencing. So I think with the government's help, I think to be able to go into every home is obviously going to amplify my purpose, if I may say.
Success, ambition, what do they now mean for you, Sabya?
You know, there is a time when you're hungry for success, and so much of success is public. You know, it's about living the big life, having the recognition, but then slowly and slowly success becomes internal. And that's when you move away from success to excellence, because excellence is something that you do for yourself. You compete with yourself, you don't do it for the world anymore. I think in 25 years, I've done what I needed to do. I'm going to spend the next 25 years excelling, because I think that's a more private journey, and also in making sure that I create transition so that, you know, when I'm not there anymore, the brand still lives. Because a lot of us hold on to what we have very selfishly and don't transition at the right time. You know, when I sold my company to Mr. Birla, I told him one thing: Kumar, the company does not belong to you. It does not belong to me. It belongs to the country, because it gives courage to a lot of middle-class people that if you work hard, this is where you go. It drives ambition and hope. And I said that, you know, we have to make sure that it lasts beyond our lifetime. So that is success for us. That's what we'll probably do.
Well, we hope that it is success that is timeless, not just for you, but also for us as a people. But, you know, I want to get the last few minutes here, because we've had a lot of people sending us questions about what they wanted to hear from the two of you. So, Deepika, you know, when we last spoke, you said that you see yourself as a disruptor. What is the most unconventional thing that you've done so far? Okay. Do you want to take a minute? I'll ask Sabya to think about that. Sabya, what's the most unconventional thing that you've done so far?
Well, my life was unconventional. For a middle-class Bengali boy who comes from a family of educationists and doctors, I decided to be a fashion designer. It can't get more disruptive than that.
It can't get more disruptive than that. It's pretty similar to you as well, Deepika, in many ways.
Yes, and I think that I often get into trouble also for being fearless and brave, but so be it. But I think a lot of my choices and decisions at every stage in my life, I think as a 16, 18-year-old to move with bag and baggage, to leave my family behind, to move to a city like Bombay, to enter the Indian film industry, I think that in itself, I don't think I realized what a big decision that was at that age. Today, when I think back, I was like, okay, that was brave, and more importantly, how lovely of my parents to let me go and have that faith that, okay, she can take care of herself and to let me go, which when I think back is quite scary, if you ask me. Maybe certain film choices, maybe certain actions in that Deepika, the person, has made. And yeah, I think I'm always thinking about how can I, if everyone's moving in one direction, you'll always find me on the other side.
Always find you on the other side, is it?
No, but I have to tell you something about
Yes.
Deepika. I'm going to share something. You know, I have seen Deepika at a time when she was not a movie star, she was a model. And I remember telling an assistant of mine, this girl is going to go places, because at that point of time, there was a lot of conversation that this girl is going to become very big, you know, and she used to come, put her head down. She was everybody else used to chat. She used to sit at one corner, very quiet, very resolute. And, you know, and I could see that she had an enormous sense of faith in herself. And, you know, it's you know, as outsiders, when you see somebody who's going to break into stardom, and you see that, and there's that special sense of serenity in those people, that they know where they're destined to go, and they're waiting for their time very patiently. And I saw that in Deepika, and look at where she is today.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at where she is today, at the top of your game, Deepika. So you've been patient. You've done the things that you wanted to do, but more importantly now, as you look ahead, the choices that you want to make, the creative expression that you would like to see yourself sort of take forward, what excites you today as an artist, as an entrepreneur? What could be the next big thing for Deepika?
I think, you know, there's always more movies and bigger movies and all of that. I think I'm at a place today where I think I'm ready now to empower other talent. So in the form of actors, writers, directors, I think I'm ready to empower the next generation. I think that's
Which
where...
means what? Produce?
Yes, but I also want to do it in a way that has not been done before. And as we speak, I'm working with my team to figure how we do that. But really, I think to empower a whole new bunch of artists.
So it could be the creative hot spot that you're creating, the creative shop that you're putting together, and when do you think that you're going to be ready to reveal what this is going to be?
I mean, it's no revelation. I've already revealed it, but I think it's about doing it nicely, doing it well, and doing it in a way that is sustainable, not something that's like a one-off. So I want to do it nicely. I want to do it well. Hopefully, I can roll it out in the coming year.
Okay.
But emotionally, I feel that's where I'm at because I'll continue to do what I do. I'll continue to act in movies. And movies are becoming today bigger and bigger and bigger. And, so there's all of that. And then there's the creative piece where it's really about storytelling. And so there's all of that. But I think for me, the most exciting thing right now would be how can I empower other people and give them the same platform that I have today.
Well, that's we wish you the very best luck with that endeavor.
Shireen, I have an ambition for Deepika too.
What is your ambition for
In fact,
Deepika?
I was texting her today, and the fact is that, she is probably the most bankable and the most famous person from India. And, when we see her at the Olympics, when we see her at the Oscars, I don't think there's a greater brand ambassador or culture ambassador for the country. And I think Deepika should officially represent a whole lot of us in some of the biggest stages all over the world, because I think that kind of representation matters, and I hope, Deepika, you will continue to do that more and more and more.
Are you ready to take on this job that Sabya has carved out for you?
Represent you now.
No, don't represent me, represent all of us.
Yes, that 100%. And, I thought I was doing that already, but...
More.
Okay, more.
More. He wants you to do more, but Sabya,
Yes.
what's next for you?
Well, I want to see Deepika represent us. That's what I want to see.
So that's her job. What about yours?
Well, I think in so many ways. The other day I read about an Indian restaurant in America for the first time being regarded as the best restaurant in America. It doesn't happen to Indian restaurants. You look at an Indian actress, going and presenting the inauguration of the World Cup, going on stage in Hollywood with the greatest stars. You see movies from here, you see television shows from here winning Emmys, movies winning Oscars. I think when a nation decides to change, there are multiple forces, multiple brand ambassadors. The Indian women's team winning the World
Yes.
Cup in cricket.
Yes.
I mean, how cool is that? I think when a nation decides to change, one or two people start, and it's like popcorn bubbling or tea simmering. I think there are many more forces that come out, and collectively, in your own way, you become a force that represents brand India. And I think all of us will continue to do that, because I think the way the world looks at India needs to absolutely firmly change, because we are not a country of cattle and cow and elephants and peacocks. This is a country that has medicine, that has IT, that has airports. This is not a country of fuchsia pink and purple, but this is a country that exists in shades of black, white, and gray. And people need to understand something, that this cannot be a country of your fantasy. This is a country of our reality.
This is a country of our reality, and a country with all of its complexities, all of its nuances,
Absolutely.
all of its colors. Deepika Padukone, Sabyasachi Mukherjee, an absolute pleasure. Thank you very, very much for joining us here. And we hope to see more of you on the global stage, because that's the job that Sabyasachi has put out for you, laid out for you. And Sabya, we hope to see both of you take brand India to the world and bring the world to India as well. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Deepika Padukone and Sabyasachi
Thank you.
Mukherjee. Thank you so much.